endlessly. That's what they do.
No, there's far more evidence, Theo, there is far more evidence of abuses of power from dictators than there is of dictators who've done it right.
Correct.
Far more, extraordinarily more.
Correct.
It's probably like a ratio of 1 in 100.
Correct.
Probably even 1 in 1,000.
But that's why we say you've got to be a benevolent dictator.
Okay, so let's scrap with that because there's not a solution. Because if you've got a 1 in 1,000 chance of getting a good dictator, then really that's not an option.
Well, what we have to do is we have to look at how we produce leaders. That's what we have to do.
And how do you decide who's a leader as a child?
How do you?
How do you decide who's a leader as a child? By the way, we've totally gone off track, by the way, on this one.
How do you decide who has leadership qualities, you mean?
Yeah, I know. How do you decide who's got the leadership qualities as a child? Because let's face it, I can pretty much tell you that companies have recruited CEOs or people to become CEOs of companies who are narcissists, sociopaths, because the thing is, because they demonstrate certain leadership traits like assertiveness, commitment, confidence, people think they've got the right qualities. And then you've got the halo effect, which is a form of cognitive human behavior, which kicks in, which means that because we see 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 things in one person that demonstrate they could have leadership abilities, we assume they've got all the other ones as well. And then they get promoted to these positions of power, high power, and they become CEO of companies. Yeah, because of their narcissistic behaviour. They don't give a shit about their staff. They only really care about themselves. The staff become disengaged, who are the functioning part of the company. And all of a sudden, many good companies, big solid companies, have fallen down through that poor leadership because someone selected them earlier on the talent fast track. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here and say that people who demonstrate skills at a young age are good leaders.
Okay.
In fact, hold on a second. I think even Warren, I can't confirm this, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Apparently Warren Buffett was actually looking for female leaders at one point because they don't have narcissism and is far more prevalent in males than it is in females.
Yes, but the difficulty is female leaders are probably are exceptionally dysfunctional because to get there, they've had to make such huge sacrifices.
You're going to be popular with the amount of Twitter followers we are now getting. Yeah, I wonder how many of them are women if they're going to listen to that.
Today's society, given the society that we have, which produces the type of leaders we have, then the pressures on women who make it to being leaders make them exceptionally dysfunctional and bitter.
Okay, I think I don't know enough about that to be able to.
Let me be provocative.
I mean, I understand that BP have actually recruited. They've got their first black female CEO. Did you know that?
Nope.
All right, and do you know something? I think that's going to be great for to see how they actually function there.
Because she's black or female, or because she's good?
Well, it'll answer some questions. I mean, there's going to be pressure on her to perform because she's going to be in the limelight. Because if you actually look at Obama, I mean, let's face it, this is this unknown person who was a great communicator. He became president of the United States ultimately because he was black, or he was half black, and they got a lot of the black votes. Yet he wasn't a particularly good president.
But Obama was just pussywhipped. Let's face it. His wife really wanted to be president, not him.
Well, you could say that about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Although Bill Clinton had a lot more charisma than she did.
Bill Clinton's pussywhipped as well. No wonder he was unfaithful.
I don't know. I mean, no wonder he was unfaithful.
Yeah, because they all most pussywhipped men feel inferior, therefore they'll have affairs with people they don't feel inferior to.
Carl Jung, the psychologist, says about people going into their shadow selves and behaving.
The micro detail here.
They're the micro detail. So anyway, let
me be provocative. Who is the ultimate benevolent dictator?
I don't know.
God.
But he's actually okay. So if you want to go down the road of using God as a benevolent dictator, I would not call him a dictator.
Why not?
Because
He dictates everything.
Does he? What does he dictate?
The 10 Commandments. Otherwise, and if you break them, you go to hell. I mean, there's no arguing about that.
Well, you could also say he actually lets us to our own devices on how we behave, autonomy, to vote for ourselves. He's not dictating how we live. He's not dictating...
He tells us what we can't do. And ultimately what we should do.
As if you believe in God.
Sorry?
And not, as if you believe in God.
If you believe in God.
Now, if you don't believe in God, then he's not the ultimate dictator, benevolent dictator, is he?
But I said he's an example of the ultimate benevolent dictator.
He's an example.
And religion is the most effective way of leading large groups of people.
But you can't have autonomy, which is what we actually have in this world, if you actually have a dictator.
Who wants autonomy? Autonomy is a catastrophe. Autonomy produces the monkey house of the Tory conference.
It allows us to innovate. It doesn't control us.
Autonomy gives people the right to give the Prime Minister giving a seminal talk, gives someone the right to give her a P45 form. I mean, the guy should be slung in prison, if not flogged in Parliament Square.
Well, I agree with that, but that doesn't come down to autonomy. That comes down to if you suppress people from thinking outside the box and suppress people from being able to create.
That's free speech. Free speech should not be allowed.
Autonomy is allowing people to be able to actually find solutions. You go into a company and says, we want you to do it this way, this way, this. It's like the medical profession. You know, you read your medical journal and you will stick to certain. Oh, this is how they've always done it, and then you're going to get some doctor halfway, you know, who decides to actually, well, they want to innovate. They start testing how to do a heart transplant in dogs, and then they start doing it on humans. And guess what? We now have a heart transplant.
No, but the vast majority, you see, the 99.999% of doctors have to do everything the same way. Once you become a super expert, a few of them will innovate, for sure. And that's how you get progress. Very few. But that's the point. Very few are capable of true innovation. Very few people have the talent and the ability to do that.
But that comes from autonomy, though. That doesn't come from suppressing them to actually be able to dictate to them.
No, those people innovate in any case. This is the whole point, and they'll innovate because they reach a certain echelon of ability and I think.
What was this topical talk about, by the way?
Okay. Well, it's about are we too selfish to look after our elderly?
Yeah, but we haven't really talked about that. But no, let's stick to this topic because it's an interesting one. Okay, because you're talking about...
Because super experts, you see, well, that's why I said super experts. People will view super experts slightly differently if they choose to start innovating.
Actually, the innovators. I mean, I've written the model on that, and there's several levels. I have a general understanding of what the marketplace sees.
We're in the micromanagement here again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I do, because the thing is, the attention is in the detail. Expert is only just above ordinary. Then you become a specialist, and then you become an innovator. You know, you would not be doing this podcast on an iPhone if someone decided that they weren't going to build Spreaker, which is what we're using as the service. We wouldn't be using a mobile phone. We wouldn't be using. So what's this little contraption over here?
This is a power bank.
It's a power bank, you know. It doesn't even have to be plugged into the mains, believe it or not. So we've come a long way since the days of Thomas Edison, right? Who actually, again, I mean, he didn't really invent the light bulb, but he did.
Who innovates? Who innovates?
Who innovates? Well, you need to be. The question's a bit too abstract.
I'll tell you now. Most people don't innovate, and most people are not interested in innovating. It's only those politically correct people who have a sense of inferiority who feel that they need to have the right to innovate.
Do you know that answer was on the tip of my tongue? It just didn't want to roll out.
Well, exactly.
Cool. You know, innovator. You know,
I can tell you right now that most of my colleagues are not innovators, and neither are they interested in becoming innovators.
Do you think you're an innovator?
I am as well.
What makes you an innovator?
Coming up with original theories. Anyone who comes up with new original theories
Okay.
and is able to apply them successfully in the marketplace is an innovator.
Yeah. So
Like you're an innovator.
I am, but you could say we're innovators in here. Someone else outside would say we're opinionated.
That's why I said, and able to apply them successfully in the marketplace.
And that's what it is, being able to. Because the thing is, there's millions of patents out there, which will probably never see the light of day, and some of them could be great ideas. But they've got to be successfully tested in the marketplace for it to work. I remember, what was it? I can't remember now. I think it was even the Post-it note. Remember the Post-it note?
Yes.
The glue was designed, it was being innovated for something else. And it turns out that it took someone to actually say, actually, this glue doesn't work, but it's good enough to actually work by putting it on sheets of paper. Hence, we've got the Post-it note now. Is that how it worked? So a lot of things have actually come, or a lot of things we enjoy these days come through innovation, even some of the food. Who decided there was a thing called spaghetti Polonaise? It had to take someone to put pasta, meat, chopped onions to actually create the first pasta Bolognese.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is,
it's grind that coffee and make it into a coffee cup that we actually enjoy every single day. But
you see, the key thing, like most things, is that you need nuclei of excellence. For instance, as soon as you talk about Bolognese, then anyone who knows about Bolognese needs to talk about Howard Moscovich. And this guy was phenomenal. He innovated. So he was involved in brand marketing. And what happened with him was he was hired by one of the spaghetti sauce companies. And at the time, many years ago, the spaghetti sauce companies were all about authenticity. And apparently the Italian spaghetti sauces were quite runny and not very satisfying at all. And what he did is, and what all companies did at the time is they thought, whatever we're doing, whether we're doing mustard, whether we're doing spaghetti sauce, whether we're doing chocolate, we have to find the best recipe, the most authentic best recipe for that particular thing. What he did is he said, hang on a second, there is no best recipe because everyone's different. So some people prefer this, some people prefer that. So what he discovered was about a third of people prefer runny spaghetti sauce, a third of people prefer sticky spaghetti sauce, a third of people prefer extra chunky spaghetti sauce. So he goes back to the company, he says, 1/3 of people prefer extra chunky spaghetti sauce.
When I did the spaghetti sauce analogy, it was just an example.
I know.
There you go. So we're getting an education on spaghetti sauce.
No, but you see, that's the key thing. It's who does innovation. They are very few people who are in the upper echelons of their chosen specialities, and therefore most people should not really think about doing innovation. They should simply think about complying with what's required.
I don't know.
For the good of the community.
The word complying,
for the good of the community.
Yeah, probably. The word complying makes me cringe sometimes, though, because I think we all have a certain talent.
School. A school runs successfully, they have to comply. Companies run successfully, they have to comply. Society runs successfully, you have to comply with the law.
You need your workers. I get that.
You have to comply with law, culture, morals, ethics, all complying. If you think for a second that you are a free unit and an entity that can do what they want, then what you have is you have a dissolution of structure and you have the mayhem of today's society, and we are coming up to chaos and riots. That's what we're coming up to.
You know, when we started this topical talk, and this probably happened in the early days before we started doing the podcast, is we would go off the beaten track, and that's just like
we're coming full circle. We're coming full circle because we're coming up to chaos and riots, and that's why we're not looking after our elderly. Because in the olden days, how did you look after elderly? Elderly were looked after by the families, by the extended family. The example last week...
But it still happens in certain countries.
Yes, because they are still just about functional. I mean, the only reason why Greece is surviving at the moment without collapsing into complete anarchy is because, I don't know whether people know this, but Greece is essentially a destroyed country where the average wages are now falling to below 500 euros a month, and the only way that people are surviving is by living with their parents and living actually off their grandmother's pension. Families are living off a grandmother's pension and a few pennies that the kids are earning. So they are surviving because of their culture and their family structure. And therefore, what's happened is, in the more materialistic, the more capitalistic, the more westernized people have become, then the greater the dissolution of their structure, and therefore